Krakow is the second largest city in Poland, situated on the Vistula River in the south of the country. Currently, it is the capital of Małopolska province. It means Lesser Poland. It is one of the oldest Polish cities. Krakow's origin date back to the 10th century. From 1320, it was the royal coronation site. Until 1611, it was the official seat of Polish kings. Until 1795, Krakow was formally the capital of Poland. In 1945, when World War II finished, Krakow was one of the very few Polish cities that escaped serious war damage. It had about 300,000 inhabitants in that time. The city was mainly an academic center. The primary sources of income for the people were trade and craft. The industry was underdeveloped. There were few industrial plants and they were relatively small. This included a soda production plant Solvay, a chemical production plant Bonarka, a bathroom fittings production plant Armatura, and a pharmaceutical plant Polfa. The real industrialization of Krakow began only in the late 1940s. The interesting fact is that it was dictated by political rather than economic considerations. At that time, the communists were trying to gain full power in Poland. The residents of Krakow spoke out against the communists twice. The first time was the national referendum in 1946 and again during the general parliamentary election in 1947. After the communists took full power in Poland, they decided to make labor activists in Krakow much stronger. They decided to build an ironworks together with a brand new city, a socialist city of workers, Nowa Huta, meaning new ironworks. We are standing in the central point of this new city. In this way, they wanted to punish Krakow and its rebellious inhabitants. The construction of the ironwork and the new town with a population of 100,000 inhabitants began in 1949. It attracted thousands of people from across Poland as they could easily find jobs. The separation of Nowa Huta from Krakow was quickly abandoned and it was included in the city of Krakow in 1951 as one of the districts. In 1954, the ironworks was named the Lenin Ironworks. In the 1950s and the 1960s, the industrialization process progressed very quickly. In 1945, there were 130 factories in Krakow. In 1960, there were 1,047 industrial plants. And in 1989, there were over 1,500 of them. The number of inhabitants also grew fast. The communists abolished private companies, therefore the market was dominated by state-owned enterprises, which were run according to the policy of centrally planned economy. In the long run, this economic policy was extremely inefficient. Throughout this period of rapid industrialization, Krakow still remains a major academic center.
In 1989, Krakow was inhabited by 748,356 residents and was one of the major industrial centers in Poland. There were more than 1,500 industrial plants of various types. 80% of the working population were employed in industry compared to only 70% working in services and 3% in administration. Officially, unemployment didn't exist because of the communist policy of full employment. This Soviet-type policy ignored economic rationality of employment and as time passed was one of the reasons for the collapse of the socialist economy in Poland. 1989 brought political changes to communist regime was overthrown, but it also brought economic changes. Due to the catastrophic situation of the Polish economy, it was necessary to develop and implement a reform program that could save it. This reform, popularly called the Balcerowicz Plan, began in 1990. The idea was to transform the centrally planned economy into a free market economy. This meant that the unaffected post-communist industrial enterprises were forced to start working according to economic calculation and compete with other companies. For many companies, this meant a need for restructuring or privatization. The implementation of the Balcerowicz plan undoubtedly saved the Polish economy, but for many industrial plants that didn't know how to work in the new reality, it was a disaster. Employment and production was being limited, state-owned assets were being privatized. These changes affected the socio-economic situation of Krakow. Employment rose quickly, reaching 40.9% in 1995 and peaking at 70.6% in 2005. With the rising unemployment, there appeared considerably more poverty among residents. As you can see, a lot has changed. The changes can best be traced on the example of the largest industrial plant of Krakow, which in 1989 was the Lenin Iron Works, in front of which we are standing. In 1989, it employed nearly 40,000 people and produced 6.7 million tons of steel per year. The reduced demand of steel, high protection costs on the enormous emission of pollution influenced the decision to restructure the plant. In 1990, the production was limited to 3 million tons of steel per year. In 1997, the plant was transformed into a joint stock company and in 2001 combined with another ironworks, Katowice. However, it didn't save the company that in 2004 was sold to the international concern Metal Steel Poland S.A. Restructuring the ironworks meant that most of its workers lost their job. It has very bad consequences for the residents of the district, who mainly work into the ironworks or in companies cooperating with it. Currently, in 2016, the ironworks employs only 3,500 workers and produce 1.3 million tons of steel per year. At the turn of the 1980s and the 1990s, other plants in Krakow were subject to similar changes. Most of the large state-owned companies closed. That happened, for example, to the chemical production plants Bonarka, which finally closed in 1996. The area of the plant underwent environmental rehabilitation and a shopping center was built there. We are standing here now. A soda production plant, Solvay, or a clothing production company, Vistula, met a similar fate. The survivors of the period of economic transformation were mainly smaller plants were able to adopt the new conditions.
Fortunately, Krakow has always been a large academic center. The presence of universities, highly educated academic staff, and students allowed to take up other forms of economic activity. After 1989, private business enterprises gradually flourished. A flow of foreign capital began. Now businesses developed. They include ones based on IT technology as well as pharmaceutical industry and outsourcing services. This development was fueled by the relevant policy of the city authorities. In 1997, the Krakow Technology Park was created, a special economic zone for the city and the surrounding area. We are now in one of the parts of the technology park. Gradually, the situation began to improve. Unemployment started to fall. In 2010, it was 12.4%, and by 2016, it dropped to 3.8%. The national unemployment rate was 8.3% then. In 2016, Krakow had a population of 762,448, 46.7% of whom are men, and 53.3% of whom are women. The city covers an area of 327 square kilometers. The population growth is 1.7 per mile. Krakow is the second largest city in Poland. It is also the second largest academic center. Almost 180,080 students are currently studying at 23 public and private universities. We are standing in front of one of them, the Krakow Polytechnic. Out of the 500 largest Polish companies, 19 are based in Krakow. 7 large banks have their headquarters in the city. Krakow has also become the largest outsourcing center in Poland. It employs 40% of the people working in this sector across the country. According to international outsourcing leaderboards, Krakow is ranked first in Poland, first in Europe, and fourth in the world. Many foreign companies such as Samsung, Motorola, Nokia, Electrolux, and Google have opened their research and development centers in Krakow. The number of unemployed in September 2016 totaled 17,000 people, 51.1% of whom are women. The registered unemployment rate at the end of September 2016 equaled 3.8%. The average salary in Krakow in September 2016 was €1,068 gross and was higher than the average national wage, which was then €978 gross. In 2016, there were 133,300 businesses registered, out of which 97% were private, 3% state-owned.